pledge of allegiance.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ginny, would you please take the roll?
Austriaco?
Here.
Vessler? Collins?
Here.
Coyle?
Here.
Lee? Sullivan? Owen?
Here. Okay, we're going to begin tonight with our favorite events, which is 207's Best Award. This month it is for academic achievement. And we're going to start with Maine East, please. Mike.
All right. Hello, everybody. I am very pleased to introduce Richa Shaw tonight as our 207 Best. So Richa is, I think, again, one of these students that is really a tremendous leader in the school by the example she sets and by the work she does. She's got a GPA of 4.83. Again, she's taken just about everything AP that you can take and mostly accelerated prior to that. She's been a PE leader for the last 2 years and actually lists that as one of the things that she most gets great sense of satisfaction from. She's been a very active member of the Gifted Lyceum program, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a moment. She's been a 3-year member of the Student Leader Board for our code, our PBIS, being respectful, responsible, and ready for school. She's a member of NHS. She serves as co-president of the Maine East Rhythm Project. She's a coach tutor. She's a member of the Math Honor Society, member of Nu Alpha Theta, Scholastic Bowl. She's been active in Rotary Interact, and with all of that, still finds time to bake in the Bake for Change Club. This fall, she was named as a National Merit Commended Scholar, and last year was a finalist, one of 10 students in a pretty multi-state regional area, finalist in the Holocaust Museum essay writing contest. And she is an AP scholar with distinction based on her past advanced placement performance. Everybody that nominated her, there were multiple nominations, and people that spoke to her just talked about the fact that she is very capable, very bright. She's hardworking, so it's not necessarily a case, although she's clearly got great ability, but she works for it, and she puts in the extra time, which I think teachers appreciate in terms of seeing somebody with a good work ethic. Tomas Sentado, her Spanish teacher, at her in Spanish Word Accelerated, said she was an intuitive learner who had the ability to make connections between ideas and subjects. Her writing improved vastly as the year went on, as well as her listening and speaking skills. Richa was also an extremely hard worker who would come for extra help to ensure that her work was of the highest quality. The Gifted Lyceum, Judy Tyler, said, Richa is a truly passionate young lady who dives into tasks with determination and patience. As a member of the Lyceum, she is carrying a rigorous schedule of AP classes, consistently volunteering with her 2 service learning projects. She finds much joy working in the community garden for Heartland Alliance, an organization that serves the poor in Chicagoland area, and was instrumental in our fundraising efforts for both community partners. Every year, if you know, we have a thing that's just a fundraiser. It usually comes right before spring break, called the Mr. Demon competition or pageant. Lyceum always sponsors it, and the best way I could succinctly talk about that is it's sort of like herding cats, because you've got a number of kids who are super active in school. They got a lot going on, and they needed somebody as a student organizer. Judy really turns that over to the kids. I'd say 80–85% in terms of it goes or it doesn't go, and it's up to the students. They needed a contestant relations chair, which basically is working with every individual, sort of getting ready, do they have acts ready, so on and so forth. It's an authentically difficult role, and she did a tremendous job last year. So it seems a little silly, but in terms of kind of real life challenge, she did a nice job. Mark Dobner is our mathematics teacher, works with the math team. Said Richa is undoubtedly one of the strongest students in the senior class, possessing a brilliant mind, an enthusiastic love of learning, a steadfast commitment to excellence. She clearly takes great pride in her work, regularly exhibits deep analytic thought and impressive problem-solving skills. I've been thoroughly impressed with her both as a student and as a person. Richa is a model student and regularly contributes much in class, offering great insights in both large and small group discussions. She's mature beyond her years and works exceptionally well with others. And finally, Teresa Bonifazzi is our lead teacher in phys ed. Great teacher, really strong leader in the building. And she's the leader of our PE leader program. At the start of her junior year, Reach took a survey in class in which one of the questions asked what animal best represented her. Reach's answer was owl, an animal of wisdom. It's no coincidence that Reach has the determination, the ability to see past obstacles, the drive to keep pressing forward. She is an intelligent and driven young lady who soars above all others. You get the idea. She has done very, very well. She continues to be a great leader in the senior class, and I'm sure she's going to do extremely well. She's going to tell you in a minute about what she plans to do and places that she's applying to college. So, first of all, let's give her a round of applause for introduce your guests, please.
First of all, thank you. This is a great honor. This is my dad. This is my mom. Hello, everyone. In terms of what I plan to do, so obviously I'm applying to around 10 or 11 schools. My top 3 at the moment are University of Pennsylvania, Case Western Reserve University, along with Washington University in St. Louis. I plan to pursue the pre-medical track, and then I want to major in either neuroscience or psychology at the moment. So.
Congratulations. And I think we've got some souvenirs and mementos of the
Right, don't need to sit down yet.
They were so impressed they got to get up.
207.
Congratulations. Now we'll move on to Maine South.
Okay. Maine South is pleased to present Lucy Campbell for academic achievement for this month. So Lucy has a perfect SAT score to go along with all the other accolades that I'm about to read. She's a National Merit semifinalist. Her GPA is 4.8974, which basically rounds up to 5. She's in AP Everything. She's the president of National Honor Society. She's a member of Model UN and the MAT team. She's also a violinist outside of school in the Midwest Young Artists Series, which is actually very competitive to get into. Another thing that I found out about Lucy when we were talking is that she is also a competitive rock climber. And she's used that ability to raise money for those in need. And she raised $4,000 for a climbing wall to be put in an inner city center gym. So she's got 3 older siblings who are very talented that she looks up to, and they've provided the drive for her to achieve what she has in her life so far. Her counselor, Mr. Spiegel, is here tonight, who was actually the first person who said, when I was looking for students for this month, he's like, oh my gosh, I am the person for you. And he said, academically, Lucy is not unlike many of our top students who are scholarly, distinguished, and impressive. Socially, Lucy has been portrayed as cordial, congenial, and gracious. Morally, amid those students I work with, I perceive Lucy honorable, idealistic, and trustworthy. However, it is an extraordinary student that can possess all of these qualities while being so actively devoted to her school and community. Erin Grimm, her AP Calculus BC teacher, said that Lucy is an exceptional math student. She is perceptive, highly skilled, and thoughtful in her approach to the subject. She thinks logically through new situations and works with careful consideration and introduces new ideas. Her explanations reveal the depths of her understanding and the connections between concepts. Lucy collaborates effectively with others, and her contributions in class and on the math team consistently elevate the learning environment. Jill Braverman, her AP English Literature and Composition teacher, said that Lucy enjoys a challenge, whether that is climbing a wall, teasing out the meaning of a Shakespeare sonnet, or earning a perfect score on the SAT. She finds pleasure in pushing herself to excel. As her teacher in English 2 Accelerated and this year in AP English Literature and Composition, I have enjoyed her questions, her connections, her interpretations, all of which she willingly shares with the class to fuel discussion. Lucy's junior year English teacher, Mrs. Joanna Ben, says Lucy is an academic powerhouse who can single-handedly raise the intellectual rigor of a classroom. In English 3 AP, her essays were some of the best in the class because of her insightful analysis and precise word choice. Lucy is truly one of the best, and I am lucky to have her in my class. And finally, Donna Schwann, Lucy's freshman biology teacher really wanted me to make sure that I read this tonight. She says, I remember back to accelerated biology class where Lucy would be holding court on review days. She said there were always a crowd of students gathered around her as students worked together to prepare for the test. Lucy didn't ask for this, but students just magnetized to her because of her understanding. She was able to take incredibly complicated concepts and explain them in different ways so that her peers can understand. I know, Lucy, that there's more mountains in life for you to climb beyond just what you've done in high school, but there's no doubt you're going to reach all of those summits. So with everything that you've done, it is incredibly impressive, and we're so proud of you, and best of luck to all your future endeavors. So ladies and gentlemen, Lucy. So you want to tell us who's here with you tonight?
This is my mom, Alice Chen, my dad, Andrew Campbell.
And what are you thinking about doing next year?
I'm applying early to Stanford, so here's hoping I'll get in, and I'd like to major in either international relations or economics.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, next up is A West, Maria.
It's my pleasure to introduce Davis Parks. So I just met Davis in September and learned quickly that he's a broad thinker with diverse interests. Although he told me he likes math and is in fact studying actuarial science, preparing to take the first 2 certification tests out of 10, which, by the way, he has recently taken the first one and passed. Yeah, just recently. He explained that on how understanding math helps him in mock trial. At the competition at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, Davis was named outstanding attorney. And he said that the logic he has learned through math study, especially geometry proofs, aligns with how an attorney thinks, illustrating further his broad thinking. He's claimed that he is against having a right or left brain idea or mentality, that everyone has a logical aspect and an artsy side. And he says, I am good at how to make myself enjoy learning something. And I'll share with you in a moment all the different people who have witnessed that. One of his proudest accomplishments is starting the Rube Goldberg team at West. And he's been interested in that since the 5th grade. He enjoys the mix of creativity and ingenuity involved with creating something new, inventing something. And he and 3 friends built their entry for the spring competition last year in his living room, constructing the project in 36 hours over 7 days. And his team's invention was a cereal pouring machine, right? And one of the things that they did well in the competition because it actually worked. He has been, is currently enrolled in multiple AP classes, maximizing course options to challenge his thinking. His GPA of 4.9014 speaks to his intellectual prowess and determination to succeed. Mr. Sanita, Davis' AP physics teacher from last year, writes, Davis has a genuine intellectual curiosity. He takes a concept, examines it for inconsistencies, tests it against his own ideas, questions whether or not the new concept works, and then figures out how to fit it into his new idea about the world. Amazingly, he does this in a matter of seconds. His ability to solve problems is second to none. From his counselor, Davis is a bright young man, but what has always made me smile is his direct style of communication, curiosities about the world around him, and his desire to fully understand the who, what, where, when, and especially the why of everything that touches his life and impacts him and his peers. His AP language teacher from last year and sponsor of the Westerner staff, which he just joined last year, and his first article, he covered the public backlash to the Maine West Warrior mascot. And he did a ton of research and writing to the attorney in Oklahoma, and did an excellent job in his article. And Lori McGowan says he's an outstanding mentor to his staff of news writers on the Westerner staff, demonstrating his patience, warmth, and wit with his feedback. Additionally, she says, despite his remarkable intellectual gifts, Davis is surprisingly humble and self-deprecating. She proffered as a role model, he is not interested in being the loudest or the best, but is invested in applying the most sound reasoning. Mr. Gertzmeyer, wind ensemble teacher, who's with us this evening, shared some things as well. It has been incredible watching Davis grow as a musician as he has merged the beauty of math and music theory with the expressiveness and creativity of artistic shape and musical thought. He is a kind soul with a sharp wit and is respected by many students and faculty alike. From his teacher, Mr. Depsick, his multivariable calculus and differential equations teacher, because he was in AP Calculus BC as a sophomore. Mr. Depsick said, Davis is an extremely energetic and enthusiastic pursuer of mathematical insights. His curiosity is contagious, and his ability to create inventive and viable arguments to non-trivial problems that he thought of himself is a joy to witness. Davis's intellectual capacity for learning, his openness to multiple perspectives, his lead-by-example character, his unquestionably high level of achievement in everything he does, and his humility make him a superb candidate for 207's best in the area of academic excellence.
So tell us a little bit about where you're planning on going to school next year.
Whatever lets me in for
Well, that's a smart answer. Yeah. I don't know.
I'll just be sensitive.
It is. Yes, it is. Do your return on investment counseling. Jobs EQ, stop in at the Career Center and whatever you're interested in, your Jobs EQ, and put the search your career by zip code and figure out how much to spend. So that was a great answer. Well done. He said, how smart are these kids?
I think it's important that are you here with your parents? Would you like to introduce your parents?
My mom's gonna jump because she's sick, so my dad, Terry Parks, is here. Then I also want to give credit to my band teacher, who's actually not the job teacher. One of my English teachers, Mr. Hofford, I think I have that too.
I want to congratulate all of our attending students and their parents, all their whole support staff, and their teachers as well, because it's quite an achievement that they've reached. This is an opportunity now for the new students and your parents to go out with your principals and have a photo taken. It's also an opportunity for you to leave the meeting should you wish to. You don't have to. Okay, we're going to, we're now have the Schuler Scholar update, that's next on the agenda, I don't know, are they setting up, are you gonna use the, okay.
You have a fob, Carly?
I have a, you mean a clicker?
Okay. What is that?
Like a.
Oh, no.
This is our annual Schuler Scholar.
So, Carly, forward back.
Got it.
Got it. So this is our annual Schuler Scholar update.
You got it, or wait a minute?
You dive right in.
All right.
Dive right in.
All right, so thank you all for your time today. I always love coming to share with you a little bit about what the Schuler program has been up to. My name is Carly Vance. I'm the school director for the Schuler program at Maine East. And with me is Mitch Dunham. He's the college counselor for the Schuler program at Maine East. So we'll be sharing a little bit with you today.
I'm sorry, what was your first name?
Mitch.
Mitch.
Yep.
So we like to start with what's most important, right, which is the scholars. So we just have a couple pictures for you. On the left is our scholars at the beginning of their journey. This is our freshman group that was up at Camp Vantage for Leadership Camp this June. And on the right, this is our most recent class of graduating scholars at the end of their Schuler journey, ready to go off to college. So today we're going to share with you a little bit about the three major program goals that Schuler has overall. The first is program scale. So we want to make sure that we're serving as many students as possible that are a good fit for our program. The second goal that we have is retaining scholars. So we want to support scholars in their classes so they're obtaining the academic profile they need to stay on track with us and have great options to select colleges. And then third, we want to look at college attainment. We want to make sure that our students are gaining access to these top colleges that they're working so hard to get into. So starting first with program scale, looking at the past few years, we've really been averaging taking about 20 students in our freshman classes, and I would anticipate that will continue. And this year we started out with 57 scholars at the beginning of the year. Relating to retention, we want to retain as many students in our program as possible, and to do that, we think it's important to look at who we withdraw and why, and understand why are we losing students from the program. We know that the main reason we lose students from the program is related to academic challenges, when students are getting C's or lower in classes. Even when students are opting out of the program themselves, typically they are having academic challenges that contribute to that decision. So even those self-withdrawals are impacted by those academic challenges. So we wanted to look a little bit more deeply at that. So we pulled data on what are the classes specifically that we're seeing the most C's or below in, and you can see that data there. Top classes where we're seeing lower grades include freshman math, junior science, and sophomore math. So Mitch is going to talk a little bit about what we are planning to do to work on that.
So to combat those withdrawals, those academic withdrawals we're seeing, we've implemented a couple of different things this year to kind of test and hopefully address those issues. So the first thing is freshman STEM coaching. So we now offer we require STEM coaching of every single one of our freshman scholars from the day they start. So they meet one-on-one weekly with our STEM coach. The second thing is reorienting our program to support directly the classes that the students are taking. So instead of taking a general approach Schuler-wide, we're narrowing it down much more to specifically what are the students that may need studying in this Schuler Scholar Program, what classes are they taking, and how can we directly impact those classes quarter by quarter. And then lastly, we're centering our goals around the key college readiness factors. So these college readiness factors, the first 5 of them, we've actually, through lots of research, we've kind of adapted and taken these college readiness factors from a study that was done at the University of Chicago, which listed these 5 factors as the most important factors for students to be successful anywhere they go on into college. The last 2 college readiness factors, which we decided to take on as a Schuler organization this year, are Schuler specific. So Schuler academics and engagement, and then Schuler college knowledge. Because we encourage our students to attend a very specific set of schools, highly selective liberal arts institutions, we kind of add those last readiness factors to make sure not only they're college ready, but they're also Schuler college ready as well. So in thinking about how this has worked for us, this past year's graduating class, these are the institutions which they have gone on into, including the numbers. So if there's no number, then 1 student is attending that institution from this past year's graduating class. So as you can see, they're quite successful in just the types of schools they're getting into, the types of schools that they're going to. And then when we dive deeper into the numbers, let's think about what it actually looks like for them to attend these schools. So first, in thinking about how do we keep college affordable, as our last student pointed out to us, we think about the non-loan aid that's awarded to our students. So the gift aid that they do not have to pay back. So with this graduating class, their average gift aid from all the colleges they're attending is $60,200 per year. So that's for 1 year of them attending. The average GPA for Maine East college freshmen is a 3.47, so that's in their first year at college. It's actually one of the highest GPAs of Schuler-wide. Schuler-wide college freshman GPA is a 3.17. So our students are not only getting into college, getting all this funding, but they're doing quite well while they're there as well. And then of course, not only do we want to get them there and help them afford it, but we want to make sure that they graduate within 4 years as well. So when we think about the first year of Maine East High School scholars, they just graduated from college this year, and all 5 of them graduated in 4 years. So that's quite exciting. When we think about the Schuler program class as a whole, the class of 2017, 98% of them graduated in 4 years, and then 1 student is set to graduate next year, so 5 years.
So diving a little bit more into our alums, so again, this is the first year where we have Maine East Schuler Scholar graduates who are out in the world doing amazing things. So I wanted to highlight for you a little bit about what they're doing. So one of our alums, Daniel Choi, he graduated from Brandeis, and he's now attending seminary. Syed graduated from Johns Hopkins and is working as a lobbyist in DC. Anyone who knows him is not surprised by this. He's also applying to law school. Judy Glickberg is working in the technology and neuroscience fields. And then John Calantes, I wanted to highlight, he's got a pretty interesting position that he's taking on. He wrote that I work at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute as a clinical research coordinator for the Melanoma Disease Center. I bridge communication between the sponsors, the patients, and physicians in my team in carrying out different clinical trials. I've learned a lot already about how clinical trials work and the importance of relationships between healthcare providers and patients. I now have a greater appreciation for our discoveries and initiatives. I get to work with the director of the melanoma team, who is one of the physicians who spearheaded immunotherapy. I feel blessed with a position that closely resembles my future career goals, a physician and a researcher. Even though my specific area of interest is neuroscience, taking this position studying cancer is only helping me widen my knowledge of the field. My journeys through Maine, Schuler, and Bates have really made an impact on my curiosity, my interpersonal skills, and the professionalism that the school requires. So I think the scholars are great examples of everything that we hoped they would achieve and that they worked so hard for throughout high school and college. So we also want to share with you what our specific goals are as a Maine East Schuler program this year, what we're working on the most. Our first major goal is to reduce the number of C's in math that our students are getting. Why? Because about a quarter of our scholars last year earned at least one C in math. And as we talked about before, those academic challenges are key to withdrawals and we want to target those. So how are we doing that? As Mitch mentioned, we're implementing new freshman math coaching for all of our scholars, and we're also continuing to support healthy math habits for all grades of students in our program. Our second major goal is to design a new program within Schuler to support underrepresented scholars' successful transition to high school and Schuler. So why we're focusing on this, we're really committed to serving underrepresented scholars in our program, and we've had some success in recruiting more of them. However, they're being retained at a lower rate than their peers. So we want to address that. So our process will include reviewing current research, collaborating with Schuler partners as well as community partners and Maine East partners, and then ultimately designing a program that we can implement in the next academic year to aim at supporting our underrepresented scholars and being successful in our program. Sure.
What define an underrepresented?
Sure. Underrepresented. So when we say that, we're talking about scholars from groups that are underrepresented on college campuses. So typically that means Native American, Hispanic, and African American.
Question?
Yes, please.
The goals that you've set up to address issues are at Maine East.
Yes, correct.
Are they the same kind of issues that are faced in other schools with programs running?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I would say the first, math is definitely a challenge area at many Schuler schools, partner high schools throughout the area, but for different reasons. I think every school is unique. So there are some things that we can pull resources on, there are some things that are school specific. For the second goal, I think that is unique to us because most of our other partner schools serve primarily underrepresented scholars. So the population is just different. The last thing we wanted to touch on are just some notes about our partnership throughout the year with Maine East. So by year end, all Schuler partnerships will review their partnership agreements, and so that will be coming up before the end of this calendar year. We just want to again state how much we appreciate having Alan Ibrahimovic as our dedicated counselor for Schuler scholars. He makes the whole process of collaborating with teachers and with the school so much smoother, and we appreciate him every single day. I also want to shout out to the department chairs at Maine East. They've been wonderful in really going out of their way to let us know when there's information, curriculum changes. They let us know in advance so that we can change our programs to better support our scholars. We would, of course, ask that the Schuler team be included in any trainings for the new student data system that will be rolling out soon. And the last piece is just in relation to our second goal. We're eager to support any initiatives that the district might take on aimed at enhancing college readiness and academic success of underrepresented scholars. So anything the district does in that vein, we'd love to partner with you on as well. Yeah.
Carly, I think last year we talked about this a little bit in terms of the math.
Yes.
And have we worked at all with some of our center schools to, look at math deficiencies and see, correlate that with what, because I don't think, probably starting in freshman year in high school is almost too late for, I don't think too late, but
Sure.
in order to get a good handle on
Right.
success as a senior,
Right.
I think you have to start in junior high at least.
Sure, and there's the
earlier.
fundamentals that really build throughout.
Fractions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point, and that's something that I know that there's new leadership at Gemini, so we're starting to build relationships with them as well, and that's definitely something that we'll be talking with them about, just how we can collaborate together to make sure that students are entering as strong as they can with math.
District 63 has also been in a pretty significant revision of their whole math curriculum, K through 8. This is their second year, I think, so there are a lot of moving parts to.
And we're also, as a district, we're also working with the Beaver School site,
Right.
so it should dovetail.
In fact, they're members of the math team in the 8th grade are joining us for professional development in October as we move to a new math sequence for them. Good partnership.
But also with 62 and 4.
Right. Yes, all are involved in this particular group.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I think the other thing, I was to bring up one other thing that we brought up last year, and I wondered if it happened, is, we were talking about a math boot camp.
Yes, so yeah.
Did you ever try that?
Absolutely. Every summer, we do a lot of math prep courses. So for our freshmen, our sophomores, and our juniors, we do math prep courses absolutely. And I think they're very helpful in some ways. So we would say that, the more you see material, the more comfortable you are with it. The challenge with that is we see that students get really quite comfortable with the first few weeks of material, and then once they encounter something new, that effect wears off and it goes back to being as challenging as it would have been in the first place. So I think it's helpful to a point, but I think there are probably some bigger challenges that we need to think through that maybe just the summer program isn't quite tackling.
And actually, another question, sorry. Is that the dropouts that you had for withdrawals for moving,
Yes.
were those in the freshman year?
Yes.
Okay, so I was just wondering how many people were impacted by, homeless, is it, because there's probably a instability in that population,
Sure.
right?
Sure, there was, of the two who moved, they're both still in the Chicagoland area. One family moved, and one actually just chose to enroll in a different school.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay, are there any public comment cards over there?
Just one, can you see?
I just want to take an opportunity to formally introduce myself to the board. Apologize that it's taken until October 1st to do this. My name is Julia Hayden, and I'm the latest MTA president. I have the honor of serving in that capacity, and I also have 4 kids, a husband and a dog, in addition to teaching full-time and being MTA president. So I finally got to a board meeting. Yes. I want to tell the board just how positive this experience has been so far. I've had several frank conversations with several administrators. There's definitely a willingness to make communication even better than it has been in the past, to make things more positive, to recognize that we are really all in this for the same thing. I have asked forgiveness already from Greg and from Sean. I'm calling up because I don't know who I'm supposed to be talking to about this, that, or the other thing. Please just transfer me, because I would really rather just call and ask and send me on to who I need to talk to versus just not know who to call or who to talk to. So anyway, they all have my numbers. If any of the board members ever wish to speak to me about anything in whatever capacity, you can ask them. He's got my yeah.
I have a question. What do you teach and where do you teach?
I teach math at Ainsdale High School. I've been there for 24 years. So we actually had a lot of interaction with a lot of people at a lot of levels, and so it seems like a nice fit to be the MTA president this time. As I said on the first day of school, this is the only place I've worked. It was my only job interview back in 1990, whatever. I'm not going to go that far, but it was my first job interview. It was my first offer, and I've been here ever since. So I've never really left the AV ever. So yeah. So my kids actually now are taking the bus to Maine South High School to take them home. So this place means a lot to me. It really, truly does. And I feel like I can add something, having been through the history, having worked with so many different people, so many different initiatives at every level. The math is obviously very important to me also, to be welcomed and to the new programs. I went with the competency group today to Ridgewood. I appreciate that ability. Was extended from Sean. The Ed Foundation has extended an invitation. Ken has extended an invitation for me to attend the district leadership meetings. He's also expressed a willingness to attend a representative council meeting, and I did bring it up, and we're sort of looking at what that looks like. So we're having
There's a
increased.
barbecue part of that.
Not
Still
sure.
welcome with deals.
So right now they want to wear brown pants with like eye circles or something, but, no, so we're looking for ways to do this to increase communication more and more. I'm trying to think what else. The bread, just so many administrators have been so supportive, willing to answer questions, willing to provide feedback, details, and so far it's been really great.
And thank you, we want to thank you because you do come to a lot of meetings, you have for a while, and we appreciate that as well. So thank you.
I like to learn.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And I would second that too, it's actually been awesome. We, when Julie and I met this summer, I invited her to be part of our district leadership council where pretty much everything that goes on is discussed. And I was trying to think, there's not very much ever that we say administratively that we wouldn't say to our teachers. And frankly, that's how we think it should be. And, the few times where that would be the case, we can manage around that. So I appreciate Julia's, just the whole tone and everything, how it's been going, and look forward to seeing how we can grow together.
She also gave the funniest welcome days.
Ever.
I think I've ever
Ever.
seen
That was the
in my
best.
life.
Ever.
Yeah, thank you.
But let's not rehash that.
No, it's not.
Unfortunately, we're embarrassing. Let's just keep moving on.
Okay, moving on to the
Oh, yeah, I
update.
forgot about the baby.
Yes.
Moving on, update from the superintendent.
Okay, so I'll start with sort of the, probably the most routine, and it's not routine, but just a reminder to the board, we continue to do building presentations throughout the communities that Brett Clark is out tonight doing one of the elementary districts. I'll be at West tomorrow, doing information for West parents, and then actually at Washington School, which was just named the Blue Ribbon School today in District 64. I'll be here tomorrow night, and we have schedules for those ongoing. One quick update, we begin interviews this week for our West principal position. We had 50 people begin or finish applications for us, so a really nice pool of candidates. So we'll begin that this week and hope to make progress and in the near future, the next month or two, hopefully bring a recommendation back to the board. And then finally, and this is the biggest piece of news, today begins National Principals Month. So with that, I just want to acknowledge, and there's a lot of research about this, and certainly we all have experience in this, but the principal in any school building is such a key driver in that building for, everything that happens in the building. They absolutely set the tone for what the school is about, going to be about, and District 207 is very, very blessed to have wonderful principals. Mike is our currently longest tenured principal, and has done just a remarkable job. I think he's what you can say about all three of our high schools, and it is not an exaggeration. Pick a metric, pick the measurement, pick anything. Our three high schools are operating at the highest level that they've ever operated in existence. Far beyond, a few decades ago when there was single-digit home contribution to those buildings. We have vastly different buildings today that I think we're all proud of the achievement and outcomes of our students. You saw a little slice of it tonight in the shooter program. That is absolutely directly related to all of the leadership. So Mike has done a fabulous job. Ben, in his second year, has been just about as good a young principal as anyone could hire. He's just done remarkable things in Maine South. And then finally, how blessed are we to have Maria Ward and Scott? When we brought Maria in this summer, we really challenged them. We're not a district that sort of sits still and let's take a year off to put it in idle. We're moving forward, and as tricky as that can be sometimes, I really challenge Maria to be that type of leader. And they were more than up for the challenge. I think they would have accepted the responsibility without that challenge. And there are things that are happening right now in West that I can already see are a continuation of the learning improvements in that building. So we just want to thank all three of our principals, acknowledge the wonderful work you do. Taking a whole month, by the way, so this is just day one. So,
I think Ken needs to send you, you know, donuts.
Every day.
Things like that.
well, I think we can all take turns. Probably you're on one, so, yeah. But anyway, thank you guys all so much, and really truly do appreciate all the work that you do. All work. I've said this many, many times, and especially the high school principalship, probably, not probably, that done really every job. It is the hardest combination of mental and physical stressors that I think any job in the system is. It's a really, really tough job, especially in big comprehensive high school numbers. You guys, all the credit, and you deserve it. Yeah.
Thank you, Ken. Okay, we're gonna move along to Sean, you're gonna do an SM.
So, thank you very much. As you may have remembered, No Child Left Behind sunsetted in 2014. In the year since, the federal government has reauthorized the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which has manifested itself now in something called ESSA, or the Every Student Succeeds Act. And so this year, it'll be the first time since the new regulations at the state and federal level have kicked in, now measuring some of those new requirements of the federal and state legislation, that will start to get a report card that reflects these new requirements. Before I go too far, I want to thank Don Marzal, who did a fantastic job helping me put this together and explain some of the nuances that I didn't get when we talked through this with the state. So this is a little bit of a history that I gave you. You can see from 1965 to 2015, we have been trying, and you hear Ken reference this very often, to scorecard how well are we doing at the state level in high schools with the highest level of accountability that's probably ever existed. If you look at this sort of over time, if you remember correctly, you used to get a PDF of adequate yearly progress when we had No Child Left Behind. And then we had a short period between NCLB and as we now have ESSA, and you were looking at scores on not only Prairie State, but also PARC. Remember the PARC legislation there for a couple of years in those tests. So now we have this. It's a little bit of a different system. Probably the highlight of this system is that your score, as it always used to, really just center upon what was your student's academic progress. There are now a package of indicators that will be used. And of note, I think, is the SAT scores this year will just represent 10% for ELA and 10% for math in your overall academic standing, which is very different. That'll move to 7.5% in each of those as they bring on the science test next year. So this year that test won't be here. We'll still be taking it, I believe, though, but it will not be counted in the scores. We did take that, our kids took that in their bio classes this year. And then you also see graduation rate is 50%. So we'll go through and see how that breaks down in the next few slides. But taking up a significant portion is that graduation rate in 4, 5, and 6 years. EL proficiency, we'll talk about that. That's something that's new. Science has always been there, and that'll be added in the future. If you look down at the bottom of student quality, student success indicators, 25% of your overall score. What that relates to are those specific topics. You see absenteeism, 9th grade on track, college and career readiness, climate survey, which you may remember is the 5 essentials, and fine arts, it says 0%. They haven't built that out yet. We don't quite know what that means, but the state will tell us over the next year what they figured in to be part of that fine arts indicator. This is just a pie breakdown of what you've just seen. Subgroups. Something that will factor into this, you'll see in a minute, is the performance of our subgroups. That's not new. The N of 20 means you need to have 20 students identified that way for them to count. But what is new is the students formerly with disabilities, students who have moved off of IEP, how are they performing once they've left an IEP, and then former English learners. So when they have met proficiency on the access test, how are they then performing? Summative designations. So what will happen at the high school level is you'll be put into one of these tier groups, tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. We'll talk about how you get there in a minute. But you can see the top 2 tiers, exemplary school and commendable school. You can see what the difference are between those two. School that has no underperforming subgroups, none at all, and a graduation rate of greater than 67%, and whose performance is in the top 10% of schools statewide. So we'll talk a little bit about how they get to that number. Tier 2, commendable, a school that has no underperforming subgroups and a graduation rate, but you're not in that 10% of schools statewide. When you get down into underperforming and lowest performing, you see that you start to have some issues with the subgroup performance, the low levels of all students, and you start to get down to the lowest 5% of Title I schools. That's not just Title I schools who get money or receive money, it's Title I eligible, which the state says is all but about 3 schools in the state. That's a pretty large group of, it's almost every school. And then lowest performing is in that very bottom 5% with a very low graduation rate. Tier 3 and Tier 4 qualify for support from the state and through a state system of support where basically you get a coach. We were told that if we were in either of Tier 3 or Tier 4, we would have been notified about that. We had not been notified. So it's our belief that all 3 of our high schools will be either at the exemplary level or the commendable level. So identification for that support. This is just a nice little flow chart of what I've described. For what we believe, if you follow this down to the far right of your screen, we believe our question is, where do we fall? Are we in that top 10%? Very possibly so, and then whether or not how we're performing there will either be commendable or exemplary. It's a nice little easy flow chart. So how do they get to that number? I may mess this up. I'll let Don fill in where I made a mistake here. But basically, they take all of the data that we just talked about, all those different indicators, and they convert that to an indicator score on a scale of 1 to 100. They then weight those different scores, as you saw as the percentages, and come up with an index score. And then they rank that in terms of top 10% schools, bottom 5% schools. And that's how they come up with your summative designation. There is a math, did you include the math link in here, where it's a little crazy about how the math plays out in this?
Yeah, that second step there, the business rules, that's what's kind of has all the moving pieces right now. So how are you converting this chronic absenteeism into a 0 to a 100-point score? I know a little bit about how each of those indicators gets translated, but it's been changing. In fact, the state has said, in terms of the rollout of the report card data and our summative designation, is they'll let us know early this month, and in the 7 to 10 days after that, ISBE will be coming around the state to try to tell you how they got there and what that means. But
they'll have to further explain it to you how they arrived at the score they arrived at.
Can we just go back to, your N of 20? So is your N of 20 the one sample from each group, or is that all of the students that fit into each one of those groups?
So
is it an N of 1 and N of 20, or is it N of X and N?
You have to have at least 20.
N of 20 in all of those, whatever.
And that's actually lower. When NCLC started, I can't remember after Bridgewater.
How is that?
And as you know, the smaller your N, the more variance you've got in that population. So that's a little bit.
I mean, like for example, in your people who have, your last 2 categories. So you have to have 20 people in each one of those things, right?
Yes.
That's what you say. Okay, then of those 20 people, how do you get those 20 people? Are you handpicking them, or are you?
No, meaning you count them all. But if you have less than 20, they don't count them at all.
So, so you do count them all, okay.
Yeah, so.
Okay, that's what I didn't understand.
This is if I have 5 students who, let's say we only had 5 students who exited an IEP, you wouldn't count that category at all.
So it wouldn't count for you or against you.
Okay, got it. All right, so if you have a, I say you only had 5 students who had an IEP and you couldn't count that, does that go against you in terms of the summative,
No,
the progress?
no. It only counts if you get to the end of 20. It doesn't count for or against. Because presumably you can count for. If your subgroup of 20 met their standards and choose to compare it against the rest of the state, then you sort of get a plus in the column. Likewise, if it didn't, you sort of get a negative in the column. Well, if you don't have 20, it's not counted plus or minus for you in any.
They don't get counted at all. Those students don't get counted in any group.
You have to have 20 to even get in the mix for those subgroups.
But how can you make a fair comparison if you have different subgroups for each school?
A very good question, and we don't have enough time to, well, and this is, Illinois had an opportunity with us to be much more aspirational. They did, and actually, I won't get too deep into this, but high schools actually are lucky. We have many more measures. The elementary districts are the ones that have a lot of, in this area, I don't think there are going to be any of the tier 3 and 4 high schools. There's going to be a bunch of tier 3 and 4 elementary schools. And it's a function of, they have different measures, fewer measures, and PARC is one of the measures. So you're going to see a lot of that.
I mean, so what's it really gonna mean? You know, when you get, you know, I mean, you have to have good data in order for it to mean something, so.
You know, I think that's a really good question, and again, it's probably a deeper set of conversations in it. Here's the good piece about that. It's got a bunch of measures that weren't previously part of what counted for us. So it gives us more ways to redefine success. I think that's the plus side of this. I think what's going to happen in the high school space, it's already happening. A lot of people are taking this data, but they're doing their own scorecards. How many of our kids are getting college degrees? Okay, how many more of our kids in this class got college degrees than in the last class? How many are getting industry certifications? How many are getting industry certifications that lead right to employment? Those are the type of measures, much harder, but actually more meaningful measures that we are evolving to and a lot of schools are evolving to. You know, because at the end of the day, nobody cares really long term what their kid's SAT score was. They care, did they find a job that they like and enjoy and is going to keep them sustainably employed, and that they can buy their own health insurance, pay their cell phone bill, and live on their own. That's actually the measure that matters more than anything to parents.
Thank you.
This is how the graduation rate will break down. So the 50%, there'll be a 4-year, a 5-year, and a 6-year graduation rate. So that's the impact that will have on that 50%.
Would that be accommodated for people with IEPs then? Is that where that comes from? Or is that like?
Well, actually, you know, a student who can stay until they're 22, for example, is counted in the 4-year rate. Because in 4 years, they actually have matriculated through the program. That's not a matter of whether or not they are academically able to graduate.
Oh, okay.
So for example, a student who's
able.
going to be staying with us by terms of their IEP actually technically graduates after they've been here for 4 years and can walk with their class.
Okay.
5 and 6 year rate would be significant for one of our ELL students.
Oh, okay.
It may take 5 years as opposed to 4 years.
So this is just a look at those graduation rates, what they look like right now, and you can see above the state average. That's nothing new for us. We do very well in graduation rate. We expect that to continue. This is the way that the ELA and math proficiency break down for 10% each, and that's just how we rate as far as what meets standards and exceeds versus approaching and partially meets. This data we shared with you last year as it relates to that when our scores came out.
And we'll stay with that just for a second, because this is another one that ticks me off a little bit. So the SAT college ready rate in English language is 480. So it's 480, but the state has decided that it's going to be 540. In math, it's 530.
It's 540. That's the one where it does match.
I thought it was 530 is college ready.
I think it's 5:30. I think it's 5:30. They're just real close.
530.
Yeah, so it's 530. So the state chose to say you only meet standards if you're actually above college readiness as defined by SAT, which makes me go, what? So college. So literally, what they've done is they've rendered the college readiness rates a little less meaningful than they ought to be. And that's a choice. They made that choice to do that. So here's the bottom line on this. More of our kids, we're going to have a bunch of kids who are college ready but don't meet the standards. That's what this means.
And again, that's just our scores from last year, to break down of what our 50% of the students were at meet or exceeds in English and 49% in math. English learning proficiency will count for 5%. It's a 5-year timeline for English language learners. So therefore, they need to achieve appropriate proficiency on that access test and show appropriate progress towards proficiency within 5 years. So kind of to Dr. Pretzler's point, you know, the student comes into the freshman, we may not graduate the student for 5 years, but also they're going to track how they're moving through the proficiency on the access exam. So they should be making progress to basically gain English language proficiency over that 5-year period. Very different for high schools than for elementary schools, for example. We might have students for a longer time to get them at a younger age when they have an opportunity to impact that a little bit more significantly than sometimes we do. For example, if we get a student who arrives as a freshman or sophomore who maybe even hasn't had formal education in a few years. That's just our reality. Chronic absenteeism, again, that will be counted for 5%. Number of students who are enrolled in the school for at least 10 school days and absent for 10% or more. It's a little bit different. Right now, they look at chronic truancy. This is just absenteeism overall for your student population. 9th grade on track, 6.25%. This is students who have earned 5 full year course credits prior to exiting their 9th grade year. Taking a look at that. Climate survey. The 5 essentials goes out, used to be every other year, it'll now go out every year. We still have a responsibility to give it to students, teachers, and parents. However, what they'll be looking at is the student response rate. So we'll still be able to use this information to help us make some changes related to each of our school buildings. But what they will be counting as success into that factor is that your students are actually taking this. Now, historically, we're well over 90% here because we facilitate that survey for our students, and we'll continue to do so.
I just want to point out, they don't really care what the students say, they just want to know if they participate, because that's the only thing they're going to measure is participation rate. So think about that. Okay, there's your state of work for you. They don't actually care if the students like school or not, but what this is going to cause us to do is we're going to gather the kids together, force them to take the survey so that our rates will be high enough, so that we'll need that check mark. It's a little bit of absurdity. I'm disappointed actually in Illinois. They could have been much, much more aspirational with all of this. But that's it. They're just going to make the kids take the survey.
Do they process those results somehow?
Well, they'll still, I assume, process the 5 essential surveys.
So they'll still give us this 5, it's not quadrant, but 5-section block will still be filled in based upon the results that we get if our response rates are high enough with teachers and parents. Historically, we have always had a very difficult time in the district hitting a parent response rate, for which then gives you a valid indicator in one of those areas, or in any of those areas. So usually we don't hit in all 3. We hit students and teachers and then lag behind with parents, just because, trying to send something out and hope that a parent takes that when they have a moment, it's hit or miss. College and career readiness will be 6.2% also of your score. This gives you a couple of points here. A GPA of 2.8 on a 4.0 scale is the college and career ready indicator. Actually, the one that could be a little bit challenging in some cases is the 95% attendance in high school in junior and senior year. So you literally could have a student who legitimately misses a week of school, goes on a couple of college visits, and misses that indicator because they dropped to meet that 95. You're really only talking about 9 days or so, 8 to 9 days of school. So, and then also on that, there's the either side. So College and Career Pathway Endorsement under Post-Secondary Workforce Readiness Act, all of the following: one academic indicator in English or math, and you'll see what those success measures look like. Identify a career area of interest by the end of the sophomore year. We are systemically doing that now. And 3 career ready indicators during junior and senior year. You'll see those, and they're actually very doable for us to meet with our students as well.
This isn't an all or none though, right? I mean, you're gonna get partial, will you get partial credit for meeting different variables, or
Yeah.
you don't get the 95% attendance, you don't get the 6.25%?
No, it just factors in as that so of the 100% of the 6.25%, you'll get a score within that, and that's kind of what Don was saying
Yeah.
about how that's all gonna break down, and that, remember
So
the
you own a
4 circles
percentage
up?
of the 6.25%?
Correct. The academic indicators here, these are all things that we see our kids do well with. So ELA and math, you can see things like advanced placement program, dual credit courses, all things that we're looking to build out if they're not built out already. Some minimum scores on ACT and SAT, and math, very similar setup. Career ready indicators, you can see these particular ones are things we talk about a lot in District 207, especially that industry credential, career development experiences, dual credit pathway courses, completing a program of study. That's actually within the CTE course framework, so they have some requirements for what a program of study looks like within CTE. Now, there are some things here that are going to be tough for us. We don't know how they want us to collect this or how we're going to verify things such as attaining and maintaining consistent employment for a minimum of 12 months, consecutive summer employment. Those, they're most likely going to be self-reported. So for us to be able to track that with any degree of certainty is really beyond our ability to do that. So most likely, that's going to be something that's self-reported. 24 hours of community service, very common for a lot of the things, what a lot of our kids participate in. And then 2 or more organized co-curricular activities. Again, many of our students are involved in co-curricular activities. And then that's just a breakdown of what that pie looks like. Again, it's the same as what I had showed you. I think that's it. Don?
Yeah, I just want to mention that for each of these indicators, when the state is computing that index score, chronic absenteeism, it's not just overall, it's for all those subgroups as well. Chronic absenteeism among Hispanic and Latino students will get you a score. Chronic absenteeism among special ed students will get you a certain score. So as long as there's 20 of them.
And then you're evaluated for each of those subgroups.
Right, that goes into a formula that then gives you a... Now, we believe that that is going to be based upon the lowest 5% of all schools. And so that means that the bar is going to be set by that lowest 5%, whatever those scores look like. And then kind of everything will go from there.
That's always going to be the cohort of kids who took the test their junior year and their senior year, so it's the same kind of thing we've done.
Well, there's some whole school indicators on this, so that's a good question.
Some kids, or which kids are we looking at for this? Do you know that?
Well, I mean, obviously for ELA and math proficiency,
So
it's
it
juniors.
depends on the measure, it's various.
It depends
Yeah, 'cause all
on the
kids are
measure.
in the
So,
mix.
yeah, and the college and career readiness, for all those things that a student can check this box, it has to be during the junior or senior year. So if the student does 30 years of community service in their sophomore, or 30 hours of community service in the sophomore year, it doesn't count. It's got to be during that junior or senior year.
When did you say that they're going to be coming around? When are they anticipating giving us our
So,
label?
the other thing besides October 31st being Halloween every year is that we get our release to the public for the score. So on the 31st officially, which is why I wouldn't do the presentation this evening, but before the next time we have a board meeting, our indicators will be out. However, we will get our first look at this on October 15th, that we can take a look at it. We can again go back and make sure we verified all information. If anything looks out of alignment with what we turned in, it's an opportunity for us to address that with the state. As Don pointed out, from October 18th to I think like the 23rd, they'll be on a road show. We don't know where yet, and it's still TBD about where you can go and find out more. If you don't understand how you arrived at your rating, we'll help you understand how we got to that number.
The school or the district?
It's per school.
It's per school.
So, you mentioned earlier there's 95% attendance in school. I know we're looking at, is that physical attendance? Because you were looking at outside of the current thing where you don't have to be physically present here. So how are you going to reconcile?
So, well, that's interesting. It's part of the conversation we had today about competency, is that even though the state launched the competency pilot, the state has not organized themselves to answer just those questions. So technically, when a student is enrolled in a course and they're participating, if they're not physically here for the number of hours that quote-unquote the Carnegie unit would allow for, we still count them as being here, and we're allowed to do that under the competency pilot that we're in. So we'll continue to take attendance that way, and report it that way.
It sounds right.
They gave us the permission, and so we're gonna follow those rules.
All right, yeah, all this presentation is very succinctly done, and I really appreciate it, the glossy have.
Yes, so there's a link, there should be a link in your electronic agenda there, and you can click on that and that access.
No, I mean that we can have, like separately. That I have it. Yeah, I mean, I can send you the link as well. Yeah, separately, yeah, okay. Right now, it's half of the agenda. But yeah, go on.
Can you add that?
Sure. Okay, that would be very good. Anyone else?
Thank you, Sean.
Sean, thank you very much.
And John, thank you.
Okay. Moving along, are there any updates from board members?
I have actually two. One is, the EdMed meeting is this Friday, if anybody's, but it was interesting because there's gonna be a talk on the STEM components with the manufacturing workforce, so I thought that was interesting. People might be interested in that. And then the second thing was, on October 17th at Prairie Lakes, Senator Laura Murphy is having a town hall meeting on the legalization of marijuana. And the state sponsors of that bill are going to be there to talk to. And I think that, I think it would be a really good thing for us to be aware of what's happening with that law. And it's an opportunity to talk about it and the effects that it's going to have on high school students. It's already having a huge effect, but since the state sponsors will be there, this would be a good time to get any kind of extras into the law, or at least introduce some concepts that they might not be thinking about for kids. And I plan on attending it.
I was just gonna say, you're gonna be there.
I will be there.
Okay. Any other board member updates?
Actually, just one, Sarah did a really great job with the events that you just had from ACAD.
Thank you.
It was very well attended, and hopefully, you did really well with that one, but next year would be great for the whole board to actually attend.
Thank you
Whenever
for the support.
possible.
Thank you for the support, moral support too, and financial.
All right. Okay, education committee update, Aurora.
All right, so the committee members who attended included myself, Paul Bessler, and Linda Coyle. Other people present included Sean Messmer, Dave Fiore, and Ginny. There were no public comments. We did a policy review on rewrite. Basically, we reviewed the district's current 7,000 serious education-related policies. Some policy language will be eliminated. Some will be added to current policies, as well as the addition of new policies. to fit into the present policy Series 8, Community Relations. The revised policies will go for first reading at today's meeting, so we'll cover that later on. And Mr. Messmer will actually cover that. There were new course proposals and name changes. I'm just going to mention them real quickly. Assistant Superintendent Mr. Sean Messmer presented new course proposals for 2019 and 20. Early Child Development is a new year-long dual credit course with Oakland College for students who earn EC1 certification with successful completion. Math 1 is the first of Math 1 through 3 series, replacing Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry over the next 3 years. Fashion Merchandising is an existing course that will now be a dual credit course with Harvard College. Baking and Pastry is currently a semester course and will now be a year-long dual credit course with Triton. Anatomy and Physiology is an existing course that will now be a dual credit course with Oakland College. And courses with name changes only are preschool becomes preschool practicum, intro to education becomes intro to teaching, personality, behavior, and relationships becomes personality and relationships, earth system science becomes earth and environment studies, AP World History becomes AP World History Modern, and there are a few that we are still looking for names. Independent Living will have a name, so.
Actually, it'll stay the same. They decided
Okay.
that they couldn't come up with an acceptable name. Maintain another year of independent living.
That sounds good. With that being done, the committee actually ended the meeting at 6:04.
Thank you very much. Okay, buildings and grounds. Terry?
Yeah, the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting was held on September 26th with Paula Bessler, Chin Lee, and myself present, and called the meeting to order at 5 o'clock. There were no public comments. And Dave Ulm, who is the Director of Buildings and Grounds, gave an overview of the summer projects planned for each of the schools. The largest 2019 project plan for Maine East is replacement of the original gutter system. The other projects include concrete replacement, phase 2 of center court piping, replacement of exterior doors and lighting upgrades which are eligible for ComEd rebates. These projects planned for 2020 include expanding the Student Resource Center, paving and seal coating, as well as removal of an incinerator stack, which is no longer used. Over summer 2019, Maine South will replace the A-wing roof, as well as concrete stairs and sidewalk areas. The spectator gym and field house will have original lighting replaced, and the stadium track will be restriped. The configuration of CTE space, concrete replacement, paving, and seal coating will be done in 2020. Maine West will replace the spectator gym roof and skylights, replace the stadium running track, and replace tennis court lighting during the summer of 2019. The natatorium roof will be replaced in 2020, along with routine seal coating and paving. The skylight at Frost Academy will be rebuilt during the summer of 2019, and in 2020, the parking lot will be replaced. There was a positive change order. A $20,000 allowance was built in the contract for roof replacement at East and South, and approximately $8,000 of the allowance was used, resulting in a deduct change order of nearly $12,000. And that was it, and the meeting was adjourned at 5:37 p.m.
Thank you, Terry. Finance Committee, Sean is not here. Linda, would you like to do it? Thank you. Okay, I will do it.
So the Finance Committee meeting was held on September 26th, 2018. Members present, myself, Linda Coyle, Jim Lee, and Sean Sullivan. The meeting was called to order at 5:37 p.m. There were no public comments. During the meeting, the 2017 and 2018 audit was discussed. The partner at Peter Casella, by the name of Anthony Nicholati, presented the audit, which was completed this summer for our district. The opinion letters outlined a clean audit, unqualified opinion, which is the best opinion available. The auditors looked at the internal controls, property taxes, capital outlays, payroll controls, and calculations, and significant account balance changes. governmental funds per balance sheet is $143 million in equity, which includes unspendable, restricted, and assigned funds. The income statement fund level has a year-end surplus of $3.2 million, which is a bit lower than in past years, but more favorable than expected. District post-employment benefits, which is the OPEB, thank you, ended with a projected $13 million liability based on 1,003 total employees, both active and inactive. The teacher's health insurance fund, which is required by state law, carries a $75 million liability, which is not under our control at all, but under complete control of the state. IMRF and TRS pensions were explained during this audit as well, during the audit explanation, as well as fund breakdowns and a grant summary. District performed better than the budget, and the great news was the audit had no findings, no errors, or internal control weaknesses. The annual financial report will be filed with the state and posted on the district website. The audit closed for approval tonight at this meeting. We also discussed the 2019 health insurance renewal. Assistant Superintendent for Business, Ms. Mary Kalu, reviewed the medical and dental programs. She noted that this was a good year for medical claims. The per employee month expenses did not exceed the cap. The cap for the 3-year rolling average, but went up 9% this year due to hospital stays and prescription drugs. The insurance committee reviewed new cost savings plans for the prescription drugs. The medical plans will have a 0% increase, but the dental plans will increase by 2.8%. The board, again, a good news story, the board and employees will enjoy a 1-month premium holiday for the second year in a row. And the finance committee recommends approval at the October board meeting for the insurance clause. The meeting was adjourned at 6:21.
Thank you.
Quickly comment, the auditor did a fine job on doing such in a very technical, complicated matters. And at the same time, I think the main council district is going to find very steady, healthy financial situation. So it's good to know.
Yeah, and Mary and
Thank you
team.
for everyone.
Uneventful audits are the best, right?
Yes.
And it seems like a simple thing, but there's so much behind that. You do a great job. We are lucky to have you and your staff. I know we're gonna get to that when we actually approve it, but great job. Okay, actually, we're moving along to monthly status of finances now, Mary.
In your board packet is the August financial report. The only variance in revenues is timing of property taxes, because that's about all we've gotten so far this year. On the expenditure side, the only variance you can see from prior years is the result of timing from capital projects. So you'll see those funds that have our projects budgeted have a slightly greater percentage of funds expended. Really uneventful in August, it's still the beginning of the year, we're well within the budget, and we expect those trends to kind of flatten out as the years go on. I will entertain any questions that anybody has on the August financial statement.
Okay, there are none. Thank you, Mary. Instructional services, Sean?
So we have 2 reports contained in this section of the meeting. One is our summer school report, which we bring you each year. So that's contained in the our first memo. I'll entertain any questions. We did have sort of a decrease in attendance in summer school this year. But other than that, things look to be about the same as in the past.
Why?
That's a great question.
You raised your hand.
One reason we think is that each year we have fewer failures, and so therefore you have less of a need for students to make up courses in the summer. The other indicator that I'm looking into is I don't know that if our new schedule enabled some students to take classes during the school year and maybe have opted to do that as well. So if there was a change to the schedule which enabled them to actually take those courses and still get what they normally would have gotten. There's a real possibility there.
and I can add something just from personal experience. I know with my son, he was able to, he's taking his social science requirement as a sophomore, and he's able to knock out, I think, consumer ed. Yeah, which I think that's kind of
There
new.
was a shift in the curriculum,
Yeah.
which allowed students to take a course in their sophomore year that they did not take in the past in their sophomore year that did satisfy them. So that has created a little bit of a ripple effect.
Do you think that the earlier start makes a difference too?
What early?
In the calendar year.
In the calendar year? You know, that it just seems like if you don't have much of a break, I just wondered.
It's the same,
Amount of time.
yeah, amount of time.
Span because they're out of school earlier.
It's the same number of days off in the summer, it's just because they,
Yeah,
you know, that we used to go, a lot of times, we wouldn't finish school up until even that second week of June, always at least the end of the first, but sometimes we would get to the second week of June, so it's just coming at a different time. I think it's a combination of a lot of things, but the other thing that's happening is we're also doing more online types of courses and virtual courses, so I think that's also going to be another trend that we will play around with.
Well, they take that in the summer, we would count that.
Yes, absolutely.
But you're saying during the class
Well,
year.
theoretically, we could do those anytime. And we've been running summer online courses the blended courses for several years now.
For example, next year it's not a new course, it's just a different way to offer consumer ed in a blended scenario next year. That may attract more students to that blended option that typically, they've seen that as a summer course that they can knock out during the school year.
It's going to be an interesting future. I'm excited. I mean, when you think about competency, and we're just beginning that journey, that it'll be interesting to see what these conversations are 4 or 5 years. Because the landscape's going to radically change on this front.
One comment that I heard from a few folks, they like the block schedule. But they were wondering, could they have it Monday, Wednesday, Friday?
Oh, yeah, we've heard.
And then Tuesday,
We-
Thursday, as opposed to Monday,
There's-
Thursday, Friday.
There's been a national
We've
report.
heard.